Hello everyone, this is Mango here. This is my voice, and yeah, this is my um, much awaited Blender tutorial series. And what you see right now should be Blender. Um, yeah, hopefully you should see Blender. Just a few things to consider. Um, I'm not gonna show you how to install Blender. You guys should just go to the website. I'll put the link in the description, and then you just have to go and install it. You know, all the usual stuff and pressing the .exe and yeah, installing Blender. Um, if my mic is a bit bad, I'm sorry. I only have a headset mic, so you're just gonna have to deal with that. Any questions you have, you can put them in the YouTube comments. But it might be better to ask your questions on the SCS forum that I made. So you'll know that I've made a forum post with my Blender guide. I'll put a link to it in the description again, just to make sure you guys have read it. So if you have questions, it's better if you ask them on the SCS forum. If you can't, you can ask them on YouTube, but there's no guarantee I'll answer them. But I probably will. So yeah, this is Blender. As you can see, most of you will have met it. You will have known what it's about. It's 3D modeling. It's basically what most modders will use in ETS, ATS, and many other games. Obviously, this series is based around ETS and ATS. Well, let's just say TS because they both use the same framework. Um, so yeah, the first episode is only going to be about Blender, no SCS tools. That'll be in the second episode, and from then on, we'll start looking at SCS tools. For now, I'm just going to be looking at the interface, how everything works, and yeah, I'm aware I've talked for a long time, so we're gonna get into it. And also, there's no editing because I don't have any editing software. Okay, so if you first open Blender, you will not be met with this screen. You'll be met with something similar, but it will be like an opening start screen. It will give you a few preferences to change, some options you can change, color, etc. Obviously, do what you feel is necessary, but in my opinion, just leave it everything as it is. And yeah, you should then be met with this screen where you can see everything, but there's a little splash screen in the middle, and just press on general, obviously, because you want to just mess around with everything. Now, what you should see is this, not this exact position, of course, but you should see a cube, and obviously you have your axes, and this is the basic scene. This is yeah, this is what you're gonna see. So obviously you have your here, this green axis is your y-axis, this is the x-axis, and then you can't see it, but there's a blue line which is going vertically upwards. If I do this, you can see here the blue line is here. That's your z-axis, okay? And that's how 3D modeling works. When you're moving something, you're moving it across the y, the z, and the x-axis. Okay, so that's some basic stuff. So hopefully you should see my keys now. Yeah. Uh, Hang on a second. You should be seeing. Yeah, there we go. So you guys can now see what I'm pressing essentially. So yeah, this main screen. This is your viewport. You're gonna see a cube here, and yeah, before we get into the buttons and everything and how everything works, we're gonna look at the interface. So we're going to start on the right. So what you should see in a general startup file is this part here. This is your, as you can see here, the outliner. So this is everything in your scene, and it's almost like the written version of what you see. So you can see here we've got a light, got a cube, and we've got a camera, and that's all here in this collection. Um, this is almost like a file explorer. You can have different folders, so I can add a collection here. So you just right click, add collections. I can move stuff into collections, and that's just for organization purposes. Obviously, if you're starting out with Blender, you can do that if you want, but I wouldn't recommend it. I would just leave it as it is. So to undo, just press Control Z and you should get rid of all that. What I actually do is I literally just press on collection and just delete it because I don't need it usually. I usually just make sure all my objects are just named well. Okay, so that's basically it. You can toggle whether you want to see something or not with this eye icon. So if I don't want to see the cube, I just do that. Okay, and this is to turn it off in a render. So we'll go over renders later, but if you want to turn it off, you just press this. Okay, in the bottom here, we have probably the thing you'll be accessing the most, which is properties. All your SCS tools will be here as well, but we'll go over that later. And yeah, so the first tab is just your, as you can see here, workspace settings. So any basic settings you need, you've got your add-ons here as well. Yeah, I don't think you really need to be looking at this much because you have most of this over here as well. Second tab, pretty important. So you have your render engine. So this is to do with rendering. Again, we'll cover this later. Um, yeah, this is all rendering stuff. There's baking here as well. Um, I don't know if we'll go over baking because I'm not that confident myself in it either, but perhaps we will. So this is your basic scene stuff. It's about your rendering, how things look, and yeah, just your management overall. Third tab is your export tab. So you can see this little printer icon. You've got all your stuff that you need when you're exporting animations or even just the object itself. So you can see here we've got the resolution. So this is mainly for renders and animations because you can see you've got frame rate. Just leave that alone. We don't need to mess with that. Yeah, and you've got your file formats, metadata, post processing. You don't really need to mess around with this. This tab is the layer properties. Um, Now I've never really used this tab, so yeah, I'm not really sure what it really does. You've got light and all that. I'm guessing it's to do with baking maybe and rendering. This tab is your scene, so you can change basic settings. So maybe your unit system, if you're working Imperial, you can use that. Rotation, degrees, radians, um, and you've got all this. I usually work with these. But sometimes I do work in radians when I need to. But yeah, that's really it. You got gravity as well, which you need for if you're maybe animating and you're using uh, fluid properties, or maybe you've got a bowling ball or something and it needs to reach the ground. But most of the time you won't have to use it. So yeah, okay, this one is pretty important. It's your world. So this is basically the world. So the world here is essentially just a grey, dull world. You can change the color here. I'm not going to change it, but you can change the color of the background if you want. You got your strength, volume, viewport display as well. Again, I wouldn't really change it too much. I don't want to change it myself. And then some custom properties. SCS tools will also have something here, but again, go over that later. Master collection, no need to look at that. And then yeah, we have your object properties, which is important. So if you click on something, this will change. So we have our only mesh object here, which is a cube, and you can see it says cube. You can change the name here to my cube. Again, you can also change it here as well. Just press enter when you're done. So yeah, just remember double click to change the name. And here you can do a lot of things. You can transform, but again, you can do this here. I'm going to go over that later. Rotation, all of that stuff. Um, and everything to do with the object is here. Um, as far as I can see, there's no, okay, maybe also here, viewport display. This is pretty important. If you want to see the name of your object when you're clicking on it, it's there. You can also see the axis if you want it in wireframe mode, which you don't really need. Sometimes you might need it. all the edges, texture space, shadow, all of that, and also the color as well. I'm going to turn that all off because I don't need it. Yeah, again, SCS Tools is going to have a really important role in this tab, but for most of your modeling, you will not need this tab, as far as I'm aware anyway, in my experience. Modifiers, very important. There's loads of modifiers which helps you model. Um, they're very helpful. You're going to use them a lot as you do more complex stuff. Again, I'm not really going to teach the whole of Blender because, you know, it's better if you get a course like I did, or maybe just go on YouTube or something. I'm not going to teach everything because it's just it's really just SCS tutorial, not really Blender. So yeah, this is I'm actually not sure what this is. Particle properties. It's to do with maybe animating or something. Uh, Physics, again, you might probably not have to use this again. And then yeah, UV maps. This is important. This is for when you're texturing and you're unwrapping stuff. This is going to be really important. As you can see, when you generate an object, it will have its its own default UV map already. And if I was to, for example, add a, let's say, I don't know, a plane, you can see the plane is also part of that UV map. So by default, all the objects in the scene will be connected by the same UV map. Again, we're going over this later. Material, probably the most important. So I thought I thought Blender crashed there. So yeah, if you go into this tab here at the top, you can see it's now textured, and I can change the color here. These are just basic coloring. Again, more on this later. So yeah, let's just change it back to white so it's easy on the eye, and go back to here. So yeah, you can change metallic, a lot of things, and then you'll have obviously your image textures. And then here you can add, I believe this is for normal maps. Yeah, texture properties. You can add a normal map if you wanted to. I'm not going to do that now. Okay, in the bottom here, this is your time frame. When you're animating, this will be really, really important. This is the dope sheet, so yeah, you can change a lot of things here. But this will mainly be for animating, which I will go over. It's basically a timeline, essentially, and you can drag the thing, but we're not going to be doing that today, so you can just drag that down. On your left here, we have a couple of just easy things that will help you. You can have a ruler, you can annotate if you want to. See, I'm gonna just undo that. This is not part of your mesh, by the way. If you were to export this cube, you wouldn't see this. It's just ease of access. Maybe you want to just say, okay, just make sure I color that in and then you just remind yourself that you want to color that in. That's fine. I'm gonna get rid of that. Um, Transform, yeah, we can do that later. Scale, rotate, these are all things you can just use with a simple button. You got select box and the cursor, which basically the cursor is where every object is going to be generated. So if I've on the cursor now, wherever I click, the cursor will move there, as you can see, okay? And this means that if I were to now add something, for example, another cube, it gets generated at this point here, okay? And just make sure when you're done moving the cursor, you go back to here. Otherwise, it will just keep moving and you'll mess up some things. So just go back to the select box to be in the natural position. So yeah, um, if you want to move the cursor back to the origin, just press Shift S and move cursor to world origin, and it's now back to the origin. Okay, I'm gonna delete these. As you can see here, I still have the cursor selected, so I made the mistake of not going back to the select box. Go back to the select box and just do that. Okay, and yeah, delete the plane. So you can see I'm sort of going in a clockwise direction because I think that's the best way of doing this. So yeah, in the top here we have object mode. If you click on something, and then you can go into edit mode, which means you can access all the vertices and everything, but let's do that in a couple minutes. So object mode, yeah, you can add stuff. Yeah, again, we'll go over all the button combinations later. On the top here, you have your transform orientations, but just keep this in global. You probably will always stay in this. This is to do with, it's basically if you were moving this about, this is to do with from what point does Blender rotate this cube, or what point does it rotate the or move something. So you can see here, the cursor is here and my cube is here. If I go here and click on 3D cursor, right? And I now rotate, you can see it's rotating around the cursor. Okay? But if I now move to individual origins, you can see the individual origin is this little orange dot. If I rotate that, it's now rotating around that. Okay? So that's pretty much it. Obviously, you also have medium point. That's if you have, let's say, another cube, and I wanted to rotate them between their midpoint, you could say. You can see here they're rotating about each other. Okay, this is active element. I'm guessing that's just if you select an object, it's going around the active object. So yeah, that's it. This is very useful. This is snapping. So essentially what this does, it allows you to get an object and move it like right next to something. So I'll give you an example. If I duplicate this and get another cube, if I move this, right, without this snapping thing, I can't, there's no real way of me moving this like right next to the thing. Yeah, I want a cuboid. I want to make a cuboid. How can I move it right there? Even if I move it next to it, it's not next to each other in terms of geometry. If I turn this on, I can now say, okay, Blender, move the cube to this vertex. And you can see now it's joined up together. Yeah, right up against each other, nice and flush. And there it is, okay? That's the vertex method. If I want the edge, I click on edge. I could say, okay, move to this edge, move to this edge, and etc. Okay, face, same thing, but it's just the face. So if I can move this, you can see it's moving along this face. I can move it along this face. Volume, well, you know what that means. It's just the volume, just to make sure it's the same volume. But I don't usually use volume. So yeah, and that's pretty much it. So I'll just leave it. Oh, increment is, let's say we're in this view and we wanted to just move along these little squares. That's essentially what it is, okay? Um, I'm not sure what this does, but I don't use it, so don't worry about that. Okay, on your right here, this is very useful. You're going to use this a lot. You have, it's like a control center. If you want to move around your scene, you can click on this as well, but you can just use the middle button on your mouse, as you can see from here. You can just move around like this and rotate the view. It's usually rotated around the world origin by default, but if you click on an object, press the full stop button, then you're rotating around the median point of the object. If you press multiple objects and again do full stop, you're rotating around both of the objects. Okay, right, here we have zoom. This is just to zoom the view like that, which you can do with the scroll wheel. You can move the view. Again, to move the view, all you have to do is press shift, and while you're pressing shift, press the middle mouse button like this and move your mouse left or right. You can see it here on the button thingy. That's what I'm doing. Here you can change the camera view. So if you click this, you can look inside the camera there, and the camera is for rendering, which again we'll look at later. But another way of doing that is just pressing 0 on the numpad. Okay. And just to reiterate, when I was pressing full stop, I'm pressing it on the numpad. If you don't have a numpad, you might have to go to Blender and change the controls and everything, um, which obviously you can all do, I'm pretty sure. Just press 0 to go into the camera, and then here we have perspective and orthographic projection. Now, basically, orthographic is just a way of seeing everything in proportion. You can see it's a bit weird, and that's because it's basically showing everything in proportion. I don't really know the exact definition of orthographic view, but it does help in certain situations, as you can see. And to toggle between that, you can see here it says numpad 5. So yeah, most of the time you'll be in this view. Okay, now here on the top, I don't know what that is, just forget about it. Gizmo, if you want that off, obviously turn it off, but I like it on. Um, Again, just a couple of things, motion tracking, just various settings. As you can see, if you turn it off, you get this. So maybe it's good for maybe screenshots, but I'm going to leave that on. Whoops, there we go. This is just if you want to see things in transparent view, which might help. Just click that. And then we have the 4 main rendering options, not rendering, viewport options. You have the first one, which is the wireframe. So you can see everything as a wireframe, as it suggests. You can have this, which is a solid, no texture, just a gray. Every object will have this same color, which you can change. Um, but yeah, it's just your basic viewport display, which you will use when you are modeling something because it's easy to distinguish everything. Um, you have your textured version, but it's not, there's no like light or shadowing. You can see there is, but it's just, basic texture, which is basically a way to see your texture without light. And then this is your rendered view. Now, for me, it looks a bit weird, which is probably because I messed around here with the colors. I don't know. Maybe it's just my graphics drivers, so it's fine. You shouldn't see this, but actually you can see here. If I move, whoops, I pressed H. If I move this, you can see the light is changing. Yeah, and so basically this viewport is the full rendered text viewport. But I wouldn't recommend modeling in this because it can be very demanding, depending on what PC you have. And then this part here. Okay, so this is probably the part you've all been waiting for, is how do you actually, interact with an object. Um, so I'm gonna move this back to the world origin. Selection to cursor. Okay, so if you want to move something, click it and press G. Okay, as you can see, I can move it freely wherever I want it to. If you want to move it only on the y-axis, press G, then Y, and you can see here it's locked to the y-axis, and that's very useful. If you press hold on. Sorry about that. If you press G and then X, it will lock to the x-axis. Okay, that simple, right? And the same goes with the z-axis. Obviously, you can't see it, um, but it is there. You just press that GZ, okay? And it's very useful for when you only want to move in one direction, and you'll be using that a lot. So yeah, get used to that. If you want to rotate something, press R. As you can see, you can rotate it freely, but if you want to rotate it in a certain direction, which is what you mostly be doing with rotating, you just press R and then the respective, the corresponding axis you want to rotate it in. So if I want to rotate it in the z-axis, it will rotate in the z-axis. And same with x and y. And as you can see, whatever I'm doing here, it's changing here as well. Can you see that? So you can also change it here if you want. If you want a more precise, a more precise rotation, let's say I want a 25 point That's 25.4 degrees rotation in the x-axis. I can get that precisely. And same goes with moving as well. If I want it to be, I don't know, at 2 in the y-axis, I can do that. The last one is scale. Let's just move it back to there. And if I press S, you can scale it up or down. And you move your mouse to make it bigger or larger. So you can make it very small. Now, what you realize is as something gets very small, it's very hard to zoom in. So press the full stop on your numpad to get closer to it. Okay, and now it's better to zoom in. Obviously, scale out, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Again, you can do it here as well. If you want to do multiple axes at once, what you want to do is drag your mouse from X to Z. So you can see what I'm doing here. I'm doing that, and then I'm saying, okay, let's change to 5. So yeah, that's it. Dimensions, you can change um, how large you want things. So you'll probably be using that the most. No, you'll be using move, like G, the most. Maybe rotation, but this one's also important. Maybe I want a 5 meter X side. There you have it. Maybe I want both of these as 5. So yeah, just get comfortable with this, know how to use it, and yeah, you'll be flying. Let's just do that. Leave this in XYZ Euler. Quaternion, it's like, I mean, it doesn't really make a difference, but just leave it in XYZ. Tool, yeah, I mean, it's just some options you can do. So yeah, I mean, if you want to change some things. View, focal length is this thing. Leave it on 50 because that's the default one. Clip start, clip end. Okay, clip start is to do with, okay, if I go this far, I can't see the object. If I change the end to maybe 10 times more, you can see I can now see everything. So that's what the clip does. If I go very far, and you can see there comes a point where I look inside the object, that can be changed here. So let's say I'll go like that. Now I can go very far in. Obviously it's still a bit like that, but you know, you get the idea. Okay, yeah, I mean, these are just basic things. This is for the 3D cursor. I can change where the 3D cursor is here. So yeah, rotate the 3D cursor. I wouldn't really bother with that. Then there's no need to rotate it. Maybe if you want to rotate it to a certain object, that's fine. And then you have this screen card keys. That's just for me, just to show that which button I'm using. And yeah, just a couple things. If I press shift and the tilde key, I can move like an FPS shooter, and it's a bit like in the map editor or even in ETS, the developer flying mode. You can see it's like here, so you can fly wherever you want, look inside, whatever you want. To exit, press right on the mouse, and you're out of that. If you want to go into edit mode, press tab, and you can change vertices here. So if you want a more precise shape, maybe you can do that. You can delete vertices, and here you have vertex mode, edge mode, or face mode. So if I want to change an edge or modify it, I go here. If I want to change a face, I can click on a face like that. And to alternate between these, you can press 1, 2, or 3. You can press multiple at once. It's not very intuitive, but you can do that if you want, if that helps you. I've made a rather ugly shape here, but you know. So yeah, I'm gonna go in vertex mode. You can make new vertices by pressing E. You can extrude out of that vertex. But as I said, I'm not going to explain everything about Blender because that's not really the aim of this tutorial. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it for now. I'm just trying to remember if I need to show anything else. Don't think so. So yeah, you have a couple of things here, like the knife, maybe. You can cut a face if you want. Press enter, and now it's cut into multiple faces. You have loop cut, is what if you want to loop around your object. So it's just cut the whole object into two. Bevel is to do, no, not bevel. Yeah, yes, bevel actually. If I click an edge and I do Control B, I can make it curved. I click here and I press segment, I can make something curved. The more curved you make something, the more the computer will have to process it if you're modding, so just be aware of that. There it is. Um, I think that's it pretty much. If you want to duplicate a model, press Shift D and move it. If you want to delete, press X. And if you want to hide something, you can just press H. Obviously, to undo, just press Ctrl Z. I think that is pretty much it for the first um, video in this series. It's not an SCS video yet. The next one will be. Um, but just get to grips with Blender. Just understand how it works before you start modding, because it's important you do so. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I will be back next Sunday for the next video, so stay tuned and make sure that you are practicing with Blender, making all sorts of shapes. Maybe you can make a house or something. If you want to show me your work, um, I think I think you will be able to do, if you know me from, let's say, Discord, uh, Crazy Mango, if you know me, you can send it to one of the servers I'm in. Maybe ping me and just show me your work. I'd be happy to see your work if you want me to look at it. Again, questions on the forum or on YouTube, preferably on the forum. And yeah, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you all later. Bye bye.